interact with the radio buttons and how to automate the radio buttons, and also how to perform assertion of the status of the radio button. Is it selected or not? So let's get into it. So going back to our test application, here is our using the grid form, and inside of this form we have two radio buttons. So let's find out how to select those. So I will create a new test. And the first thing that I will need is the locator for using the grid form. I will take the half of this locator and will rename it using the grid form. And now we need to locate the radio buttons, to select the radio buttons. What kind of the options for the locators we have? Right click, inspect, and look at this button. So radio button is this input field. Input, which is type radio. It is visually hidden. We need to point attention to this class. I will show you later why. And also we have a span with text option 1, which is the name for our radio button. And all this is wrapped into a label tag, so we can select this element by label as well. And we have 3 radio buttons, 1, 2, 3. If we open up, inside of it is a label, and inside of the label is input field. So we can select this radio button by label and by role as a radio button. Let me show you that. So I type await using the grid form. And let's say first we select it by label. So we just provide the name of this label, which is option space 1, and we use a method called check. This method is used to select the radio buttons. But for us, it will not work as is, because our input field for the radio button in this particular application marked as visually hidden. I don't know why developers decided to go that way, but because it is visually hidden, the check command will not pass the default checks such as the element should be visible, clickable, and so on. So Playwright will not be able to select this element. And in order to bypass this validation of the availability, we need to pass the parameter force true. By providing the force true, we disabling the verification of different statuses that check command is waiting for. So we're just literally clicking on this input field, or we're checking this input field. And let me run this. Yeah, and you can see the option 1 was successfully selected. Okay, the second example how you can select the radio button is using another type of the locator, using the grid form getByRole. And in this example, we will take a role of radio, and we provide the name of the radio button, which is option 1, and we do the same thing, check force true. Let me comment this out and run this test one more time. Yeah, and you can see option 1 is also selected successfully. So there are 2 options, getByLabel or getByRole radio. Now, how to validate if our selection was actually successful? If you want to use a generic type of the assertion, first you need to take the status of this radio button. Is it selected or not? So I create a new constant and call it, let's say, radio status equals 2. Then I take my locator of radio button and type is checked. So is checked will check the status of this radio button and will return us a boolean. Is it true or false? So if this radio button is checked, radio status value will be true. If it's not checked, radio status value will be false. And then we make a validation of expect radio status, and assertion will be to be truthy, this one. So we are validating the status is actually a true. Let me run this one more time. And test is passed successfully. Second type of the assertion would be a locator assertion. It will be await, expect. We provide the locator, which is using the grid radio option 1. and we use a method to be checked. And this is the second way of validation of the status. Running this test. Yeah, and it's working fine. And let's continue our script with just a couple more validations. So let's say we want to select the second radio button, which is option 2, and then we want to validate that after we selected the option 2 radio button, option 1 should not be checked. All right, so let's do this. So I just taken this locator right here, copy pasting it and providing option 2. We want to select this one. And after we selected option 2, we need to validate the option 1 radio button is not checked. So how to do that? And I will use my generic assertion, and without creating a new constant, I just copy my entire command inside of the expect. And then here I validate to be falsy. So I am validating that it is not checked anymore. It is falsy. And then I am validating that the option 2 is to be truthy. This one is selected. So option 1 is not selected, it's falsy, and option 2 is selected, it is truthy. Let me run this test. Yeah, you see it works successfully. Option 2 was selected, and we see this test passed successfully. All right, so let me quickly summarize what we did in this lesson. In order to select the radio button, the most recommended way is to use getByRole radio and provide the name of the radio button. To select the radio button, use a method check. If the radio button is hidden for some reason, you can use a command force true to bypass Playwright check of availability. In order to validate this status, is it selected or not, you can use generic assertion or locator assertion. For generic assertion, using method is checked, you can get the status of the web element, and then you can make validation of the status, is it truthy or falsy. Or if you use locator assertion, you can use method to be checked. And as a shortcut for generic assertion, you can always provide the entire locator as the argument to the expect command, and then to validate if the radio button status is falsy or truthy, which means is unselected or selected. All right, that's it guys, and see you in the next lesson.